Hi guys, very warm welcome. Let's see what we can do together. Just a sec, okay? One sec. Yeah,
teaching what was there in the syllabus, but to know that a lot of that is concocted, history. Lalit Aditya in the 7th century, he, along with several others during his time, ensured that the Arabs beyond that narrow portion of Sindh never managed to get to the mainland of India. Dahar's wives is taken away as, Muhammad bin Qasim forcibly marries her. The other one commits Johar when Mahmud of Ghazni comes to Somnath temple, and he's quite shocked to see 50,000 common Hindus, all armed in some manner, defending their temple. 400, 500 of the family who were hanged from trees on Deepavali. And to this day, the Mandi
They
Mayangas
don't
don't
celebrate.
celebrate. That's also a living history. And despite that, we do perverse things like Tipu Jayanti and all of that. Every year is
Tipu Jayanti is something to be banned in India. There should be no Tipu Jayanti. But uh, there is a boat called Tipu Sultan that sails from Kochi port to Lakshadweep every week. So I wonder if Tipu Sultan is such a bad thing. Why would they have a boat called Tipu Sultan that goes from Kochi to Lakshadweep every week? Yeah, but yeah, let's ban Tipu Jayanti. That's a new one.
like one generation lost. And most children uh, don't read history beyond, say, class 10 or 12.
No, it's better not to read history beyond class 12 because after class 12, all you get to read is Mughal history. If you go for MA, BA history in Kerala universities. Yeah.
Namaste, Jai Hind. Welcome to another edition of ANI Podcast with Smita Prakash. Today, my guest is Vikram Sampath, noted author and historian, whose new book, Brave Hearts of Bharat, has created a few ripples. Vikram's 7 earlier books include 2 volumes of Veer Savarkar, which also generated a lot of interest. Vikram has a doctorate in history and music. Dr. Sampath, thank you for coming to our studios. Most honored that you're coming here to discuss your book and much more.
Thank you, Smitaji. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I'll be calling you Smitaji if you insist on calling me Dr. Sampath. I think Vikram works well enough.
Okay, so during the course of this podcast, it's going to be Vikram, which it is offline. Um, so in your book, you say in your new book, which is Brave Hearts of Bharat. In this, you say that India doesn't tell its story, and as Sanjeev Sanyal said, and I'm quoting from that, the manner in which Indian history is depicted as is a it's a long litany of failures. Every battle we are taught about is one in which India or Indians have only lost. We're made to appear as a nation of losers. Speaking of,
Bull crap. We are not made to appear as a nation of losers. Please, sorry. India is not losing every battle. India is not losing every war. Yeah. Yeah. That was a knee jerk reaction.
nation of losers, before I get to your book, I'm going to get to your tweet.
Oh, God.
Yes, I know. See, this is how I trick my guests
Can see
because
that.
your tweet on Savarkar. You've written on Veer Savarkar, 2 volumes, eminently readable, though very voluminous, I must say. It took me a
It
lot of
helped
time.
people, during the lockdown as dumbbells also
Yeah.
for a lot of
So
them.
it's only if you have misconceptions, or if you have if you're a serious reader of
Hmm.
history, that 2 volumes get consumed, get absorbed quickly. But anyway, so your tweet on Rahul Gandhi, you called him an imbecile, so that made a lot of news.
Uh, Coming back to the question of whether we are a nation of losers or not, one of my cousins who draws a fat pension of 1,60,000 from his mother's retirement pension once said that I am a freeloader. You know what's a freeloader? A freeloader is a pest who eats, who lives on free stuff in life. Like he doesn't work and he's a freeloader. So yeah, I understand where the premise that Vikram Sampath comes from when somebody calls you a loser. This guy, my cousin, is in America, so from the American perspective, I might be a freeloader. But yeah,
Why were you so angered?
I was not angered, Smita. It was just that, I've been telling the same thing from the last 3 years. That's why I put out another tweet, giving links to all the interviews, all the videos,
Hmm.
talks, lectures, interviews with almost all the channels of all ideological tilts,
Hmm.
left, right, and center, where we've been talking about this. He wrote mercy petitions. He was complicit in Gandhi's assassination. He was an Islamophobe. He was the reason for the two nation theory. All this has been done to death. And it's just that suddenly someone just comes up with the same dead horse to flog. And then you know how the media works. Immediately there are panic calls from all the guest relations saying, tonight, 8 o'clock, there's one show,
Hmm.
9 o'clock, there's one show. And I'm really tired saying the same thing in autopilot mode. It's like a broken gramophone record that I go on. So, yeah, I was more exasperated and I think intellectually and mentally fatigued to take on this.
yeah. Basically, Vikram Sampath, he has been constantly fighting for Veer Savarkar, who has been accused of being a co-conspirator in Gandhi's murder. So that is what he's trying to explain right now.
And I
Hmm.
think he was just doing it for the sake of publicity.
Hmm.
Who in his right mind, that too going to Maharashtra,
Hmm.
where Savarkar is a very revered figure, and he has an ally there for whom Savarkar is a very revered figure. They've been
Hmm.
asking the
They've
Bharat.
distanced themselves from that comment.
Well, yes, I mean, there was a time when Balasaheb Thackeray said that Mani Shankar Iyer will never be allowed to enter Maharashtra for the comments he made on Veer Savarkar. The Shiv Sena has been one party which has been consistently asking for the Bharat Ratna for him,
Hmm.
much before the BJP also entered the fray. So I'm sure his advisors know the dynamics, and the poor Mr. Thackeray is already, surrounded with so much problems. He's hemmed in from all sides. His party has split. Why would anyone in their right mind embarrass your ally at such a going to their state when they've already had a split and cause this? So
And his son went and
hugged him.
joined that Bharat Jodo
Yeah,
Yatra, and this was
just
um,
after that. So I really don't know who the advisors, particularly on historical matters, are,
hmm.
because these are such juvenile comments. That was, I mean,
Yeah. So basically, he's talking about.
someone signing off as your most obedient servant. We had Mahatma Gandhi signing off like that, Subhash Bose. That was the template of the time. The colonial masters you were always
And
addressing.
I think everybody should have gone through the rigors of CBSE education system,
Yeah,
done this Renan Martin, and learnt English the way we all learnt it, and it was that it's part of your thing,
yeah.
that you write yours obediently, or yours respectfully, or yours
Warm
warm.
regards.
Yeah,
I
that.
may not have any regard for you, but I have to sign off like that.
Yeah.
And this is common sense, and to make that a national issue, just looking for publicity. So I think the best thing is to ignore. Stupidity can't be fixed. So
Hmm.
there's no point भैंस के आगे बीन बजा के क्या फायदा? So that was one reason I said I'm just done to death with this. But
But
that
you have
again, no, but that again was, oh, he's running away from the battleground. I mean, excuse me, I don't want to fight this battle with such people.
but
I
you have
choose my
had
opponents.
you've had Twitter spats with historians too, right?
Well, historians, not just Twitter spats, Smita, even court spats.
Yeah, I
So
know.
there's been much more than that. But
Yeah.
I've always liked to engage with
Wow.
a wide variety of people.
Hmm.
In the long list of video links that I put, on.
Not just Twitter stats, Twitter uh, fights, but also court fights. So I am in awe of you, Dr. Vikram Sampath. So you are my idol. But trust me, I don't want to get into a court fight.
One more media outlet. We had a big face off with Professor Aditya Mukherjee, former JNU professor, with Shashi Tharoor, Dr. Shashi Tharoor, in one of the conclaves. So, a lot of historians don't engage in debates and discussions, particularly those belonging to the leftist,
Hmm.
school of historiography. It's my way or the highway. There's no, it's never a dialogue with another person. It's
Correct.
always a monologue. But I've always had, open conversations with people who have differing viewpoints.
Hmm.
But then there need to be some standards of discussion and debate. If you actually bring the level of the debate to the mm, lowest common denominator and then
Hmm.
expect someone to resolve all this, with
My lowest common denominator is when I say, if somebody says, okay, I'm gonna fuck you up, or I'm gonna mess up your life, I just say, just put a toothbrush up your ass and feel the joy. Yeah, that's my lowest common denominator.
people who have not read most of it and who
Yeah.
come from a place of prejudice, who come from a place of rhetoric, I think it's a waste of time. 3 years, 4 years ago, maybe I would have said, yeah, let's do it. But now I'm bored of that.
Okay, so your book, Vikram, it's immensely readable.
Thank you.
It's a lighter read from the Savarkar volumes.
I've
Um,
outdone myself in terms of the size.
uh, one would think that maybe it's easier to write, but
Mm,
I doubt it because to get all this
mm.
research material on the 15 people that you quote, it must have been hard
Yeah.
because there wasn't enough research or it wasn't easily accessible, right?
Right. I mean, I think I was conned by my publishers. They said
Okay.
after those huge volumes, let's do what my editor Premanka Goswami called it, a quickie.
Mm.
It'll be a quick read, so just do this. And 15 people. The I thought the difficult part was only choosing who the 15 would be, because you don't know. It's more about whom you have to
Yeah.
leave rather than whom you're going to select. But I realized it was 15 times more difficult than the Savarkar volume because, as you said, there's so little documented history, particularly in English or whatever. You have to rely on a lot of regional, language literature, oral narratives, folklores, all of that. But it gave me a great. I mean, I traveled across most of the places that
Yeah.
mentioned in India and met so many people and accessed a wide range of sources, which was deeply illuminating. A lot of them I myself didn't know, particularly like places like the Northeast.
The best sources are folklores. The moment you hear a folklore, you should associate it with a credible story. So, yeah, that is my take on that. Folklores is the most effective way to understand a credible story.
Which is a black hole, I think, when it comes to Indian historiography. Who even knows much about the Ahoms? I was now coming all over Delhi. There are hoardings now of Lachit Borphukan. We're having his 400th birth anniversary being celebrated in the coming week. I think on 24th of November is Lachit Divas now. Thanks to the government of Assam and government of India, we are at least commemorating that now.
Yeah.
Of course, there was a medal in his name in the army and so on. But other than that, the larger Indian, mainstream history the Ahoms who ruled for 600 years, if you ask a little child, can you name two Ahom Rajas or one Ahom Raja? I'm sure nobody would even know.
Nobody.
So just imagine the plight of someone coming from the Northeast to, say, a Delhi or a Bangalore, or to study, and in their textbooks, their part of the country is not even represented, and you're reading that as the history of India. So do they not even matter in the larger narrative of India? And what sort of uh, you know um, unity are
Well,
you then creating?
I beg to differ on Vikram Sampath on this because Saraswati Vidyaniketan is a school where I taught, and it has a hostel, and it has massive uh, number of students of from Manipuri lineage. And Manipuri lineage students, they don't feel for a single moment out of place. They residing in Kerala, learning about learning a CBSE syllabus and understanding Malayalam language rather than Manipuri language, as long as they are here in Kerala, and going back to their homes and then understanding about their cultures in the summer vacations. I don't know what you are talking about, Mr. Vikram Sam.
Among people and communities, which is the sad manner in which history has been written
True,
here.
Northeast has been, completely ignored. I'm going to get to the Northeast part, but before that, I want to just know first, like, how did you select these 15 people? Before I go to the regional, I
Yeah,
want to go from Kashmir right up till, Karnataka.
yeah,
So, and from the east, from Assam, I will come to
Gujarat.
Kutch. Yeah. So we will traverse the course. But
Yeah.
first, how the 15? It must have been hard, right?
Yes, as I said, I think it was more about whom to leave
Huh.
because my criteria were, one was, of course, these are tales of resistance, tales of bravery,
Hmm.
where, as you rightly mentioned, I mean, it's not as if we always, covered in front.
Yeah, I would say that Vikram Sampath's book is a must buy because it features Manipuri history and it features Veer Savarkar and it features 15 people's histories, 15 lineages that have been not been talked about in the general milieu of NCRT education. So I would say that Vikram Sampath's book is a must buy. It should be available. If it is available on Google Playbooks, I'm definitely buying it. I'm not buying a hard copy. If it's available on Google Playbooks, then I'll buy it.
Front of invasions. We also won wars. So, what were these wars? Who were the protagonists of these wars? Making that sort of a list. And also, I wanted a larger time span.
Hmm.
So, it starts from the 7th century and ends in 1857
Hmm.
with the uprising. And then, whatever happens after that is the freedom movement.
Hmm.
So, I thought that was a good stop. And geographical spread. So, uh, traditionally, those areas of India which have been ignored in mainstream Indian historiography, the south of India, both of us come from the south,
Hmm.
our stories also don't get featured. We're
Hmm.
still better off than the northeast, but we don't get that coverage.
Where?
So
Only Vijayanagar. That's it. I'm going to
that
come to
also
the
is,
Cholas.
yeah,
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 little bit, but
hardly, yeah,
hardly.
hardly.
But yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the criteria, the geographical spread.
Hmm.
And I think another important point for me was the gender balance. Again, history has always been his story,
Hmm.
where her story never gets the due that it deserves.
Rani Padmini got Padmavat, and Padmavat was opposed in the theaters. So, yeah.
Deserves.
Yeah.
And so, out of the 15, I've selected 7 women and 8 men. So, tried to balance that also. So, geography, time span, gender, and the criteria was, stories of courage. Some are not. I mean, two of them were not traditional warriors. They didn't wear an armor and burst into the battlefield. Ahilya Bai Holkar and Rajarshi Bhagya Chandra Jai Singh of Manipur. I don't know. Even I didn't know this man existed before. But both of these were civilizational warriors.
Hmm.
We'll talk more about them later. But they united their part of the country and Ahilyabai, the whole country, through culture, through spirituality, at a time when the country was going through a decadent phase and invasion and all of that. So I thought these two were important, not just in terms of military courage, but also I think civilizationally, what were their contribution to this nation?
Actually, when you mentioned Ahilya Bai, I'm going to come to Ahilya Bai, but Ahilya Bai is somebody I thought would be the person I will read first.
Huh.
That because it doesn't go chronologically in the book,
Yeah.
I thought I'll pick up Ahilya Bai because curiosity
Huh.
about Ahilya Bai.
Curiosity.
So I
Huh.
get, but let's start with Kashmir now. It was the most revealing thing
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
When I read, I was like, we tend to think of Kashmir as one part.
Hmm.
None of us think that it went right down till the plains. So you explain to me or give me a teaser, or to our viewers, reader, listeners, a teaser about this Lalita Ditya.
Yeah.
Tell me about it, because I was like fascinated. I said,
Yeah.
यार मेरे को तो पता ही नहीं था इसके बारे में. I'm telling you this because I'm sure there'll be some comments saying कि, oh, how ignorant she is. But sorry,
Yeah. I mean,
most of us were.
Karkota dynasty, how
Yeah.
many people know
How
that?
many?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lalita Aditya Mukti Pida. I mean, very few would know. At least we didn't have him in our
Hmm.
growing up years in
No.
textbooks. And this
Hmm.
man was called the second Samudragupta of India.
Hmm.
Yeah, basically, even if you don't know Samudragupta, yeah, I will give you a recommend read uh, the entire mythology pack from Amar Chitragatha. Amar Chitragatha has Jataka Tales pack, mythology pack, and a few other packs. So basically, the mythology pack from Amar Chitragatha would be has Chola, Samudragupta, everything. So why don't you just grab hold of the mythology pack from Amar Chitragatha rather than going for Vikram Sampath's book, which is a watered down version of his opinion about fictionalized beasts.
And Kalhana, of course, in his Rajatarangini, paints a very, fantastic and exaggerated picture of his Digvijaya campaign that he made across the entire subcontinent, according to him, was under Kashmir's supremacy, which is a little exaggerated.
Exaggeration.
He
Okay.
says he almost crossed Karnataka, defeated the Rashtrakutas, then went to the Tamil land, defeated them, then crossed the ocean and even conquered Lanka. So, which is a little,
There are no documents
no,
to
then
support that.
nothing
Hmm.
to triangulate that bit. But then he had at least still what is today's Madhya Pradesh, Bengal, Odisha, to some extent parts of Assam, Gujarat, all of that, and on the western side, Afghanistan, Gilgit Baltistan, Tibet. So all this entire
Hmm.
span was the Kashmir Empire under Lalita Aditya in the 7th century.
Hmm.
And we never heard of him. And his biggest contribution was the fact that he, along with several others during his time, ensured that the Arabs beyond that narrow portion of Sindh, which they conquered after a lot of
Hmm.
effort, and Dahar's family,
Hmm.
Raja Dahar there, and his predecessor, Chacha, who was the founder of that dynasty, ensured that the Arabs never, had a free run. It took them 60, 70 years to capture after Muhammad bin Qasim came. And beyond those little ports in Sindh and so on, the Arabs never managed to get to the mainland of India. Why are we not told this story? This is such a fantastic tale.
Who held them back?
All
Yeah.
of these people, yeah, Lalita Aditya, there was Yashovarman in Kannauj, then there was a confederacy created of so many people, Bappa Rawal, Naga Bhatta, Pulakeshin, Vikramaditya, Danti Durga. Do we even, does it strike a
Yeah, basically, this guy is very well read. He knows about Pulakeshi, so yeah. So Pulakeshi was a fearless leader of the South, and yeah. So if he's read about that, he knows his stuff. So uh, well, worth a one read. But as long as the book is not coming to Google Play Books, I'm not going to read it. And I haven't seen any mention of the name of the book or the price of the book uh, on this podcast. So that's a big on this video. So that's a big yeah problem for me. So yeah,
a bell in anybody's mind that
No.
these were the people who ensured the Arabs, but all of us would know who Mohammed bin Qasim is
Yes.
when the invasion of Sindh happened.
Mm.
So that is by rote, every child would know. It would be a 1 mark question in some history paper. But who are the people who ensured that they didn't go beyond that narrow part of Sindh? No, we don't. We wouldn't talk about that. So I rest my case that way. That this is the
Yeah.
history that's been handed down to us. What was given to us, I think, by our colonial masters was further perfected by logically oriented, post-independence historians who made this their
Mm.
project as to how the history of India needs to be written.
So
Yeah, so basically, if I am your colonial master, I would have you brainwashed into thinking that software industry is Taliban uh, and stock market is Indian Army. Because stock market and software industry are at opposite poles to each other. So if you are getting into software, make sure you don't get it blasted by an IED. Yeah, that's what I want to say.
tell me a little bit about the fall of Sindh
Yeah,
and Qasim.
yeah, that's a fantastic tale, and it's I wanted to actually do a separate chapter only on
Yeah.
Dahar
Yeah.
because I think right from 636 CE, the Arabs kept trying to invade Sindh, but it was only by 710 when Qasim came, Muhammad bin Qasim, that they finally conquered Sindh,
Hmm.
and that too, Muhammad. There was this incident of a ship that was going from Lanka all the way to the Caliph, and that got stopped by pirates at the Debal port. And Dahar did not stop it. And so the Caliph was enraged and he sent Muhammad bin Qasim to invade Sindh. And he comes with this huge army, and it takes him a lot of time to actually invade Sindh. But Dahar is very overconfident and complacent because in the past almost 60, 70 years, they've not been able to make inroads. I think that was his falling. And he comes in the open battle to fight Muhammad bin Qasim, and he's killed there. And that what follows is a total plunder. And for the first time, I think the kind of loot and rape of women, demolition of places of worship, Buddhist and Hindu shrines is so widespread, which probably Sindh faced one of the first times the kind of rampages there. And one of Dahar's wives is taken away as Muhammad bin Qasim forcibly marries her. The other one commits Johar, and this is probably the first documented episode in Indian history, much before Padmavati and others, where all the royal ladies committed Johar to escape the clutches of the invader. And the two daughters, that was again a very fascinating story, Parimal Devi and Surya Devi, who are packed off as gifts to the caliph. And once they go there, they hatch a plot and tell the caliph that we've already been used by Muhammad bin Qasim, and so we are not pure enough for you. And the caliph is so enraged, he doesn't even think.
Hmm.
And Muhammad bin Qasim, who's having a victorious lap in India, he's summoned back to be brought back sewn in a leather bag. And so on the way, he actually dies of suffocation. And once the news of his death reaches the two princesses, they then tell the caliph that they lied to him only to take revenge for their
Yeah.
father's
Yeah.
murder. And then the caliph is obviously enraged, and the girls are also put to death. But they managed to avenge the two girls despite being in the harem
Hmm.
and the captivity of the caliph. They actually took revenge for their father's killers.
Now, you talk about Sati and Johar. I know I'm going to come back to
Mm.
Ahilya Bai. I mean, I'm going to keep coming to Ahilya Bai.
Yeah.
Like when you talked about the first known Johar, which has happened in Sindh,
Mm.
with Ahilya Bai, her daughter commits
Yeah.
Sati.
Yeah.
I mean, she didn't, but her daughter did. What was that like?
Yeah.
You
Oh
know?
my, that was
Yeah,
again a very sad
yeah.
story.
That story, it shook me. I'm not a mother of a daughter, but I'm
Uh,
a daughter.
uh,
I can well understand what it must have been or must have felt or
for the mother,
for
yeah.
the mother.
And she, despite all her piety and her devotion, I think her personal life was such a disaster.
Yeah.
The poor lady, and The husband was a debauched man, this Khande Rao, who had several wives. And but what is interesting is the father-in-law and daughter-in-law equation too.
Equation. Yeah.
Uh, Malhar Rao Holkar, who finds this little girl somewhere, and he's so impressed by her erudition that he proposes to get her married to his son. And then he takes complete charge of her education, her upbringing, all of that, which is so rare. I mean, in 18th century India,
Hmm.
the father-in-law actually trusting the daughter-in-law more than his own son.
Hmm.
And after he dies in battlefield, when all the other 8 or 9 wives commit sati, he insists that Ahilyabai should not commit,
Yeah.
because you are the strength and you're the one who's trained in administration and all the politics of the time. He's sharing those letters with her. These are all documented and kept in the Maheshwar archives. And later on, her son also dies, and he's mentally imbalanced. So there's no heir, and then she takes on the throne as the queen of Indore, much to the displeasure of the Peshwa's uncle Raghoba, who tries to usurp the
Hmm.
kingdom, but she gives it back to him in style. But I think the biggest problem for her comes when her only source of succor, her daughter, loses her husband, and she decides to commit sati, and she pleads with her. The first person account of how
Hmm.
she goes there and literally falls at her feet and cries, and the daughter says, "You are going to die in a few years, and that I will be left to deal with a life without a husband. So I can't. This is the right moment for me to take this noble course of self-immolation." And she goes away, and this lady is supposed to have cried openly. Someone who's never given to showing emotions in public actually breaks down. And the first person account of a British chronicler who writes that, and she locks herself up in the room for several months. She stops eating. She completely gets into a sannyas mode after that. So very sad tale for somebody who was otherwise given to so much of
Yeah.
charity, piety,
Hmm.
renovation of so many temples.
Yeah.
Sad personal
You
life.
can't go to Kashi, you can't go to any of these places,
Somnath, yeah,
Somnath.
yeah. There's a
Okay, let's talk about Somnath.
yeah,
Talk about the Somnath idol. Let's talk about Somnath and what happened there.
yeah. That's again such a fascinating tale, Smita.
Yeah.
And so when Mahmud of Ghazni gets to Gujarat, the Chalukya ruler Bhim Deva, he's run away, fled, and so Mahmud has a easy run through Patan, goes to Somnath, and he's come specifically to
No, basically in Gujarat, what happened was uh, Rais happened. Rais, do you know the movie Rais? That is Rashid Latif. Rashid Latif, the MLA who was smuggling, selling liquor during prohibition. So I consider myself Rashid Latif from Rais. So basically, Bhim, the Chalukyas didn't run away. They fought against the Mughals. And yeah, so basically, I am Rashid Latif from Gujarat, the MLA who was shot and dead in an encounter by the police because he was considered extremely dangerous. And yeah, so that's my point from Chalukyas and Gujarat. So Rashid Latif was a MLA in Gujarat, and that reminded me of Rais, the Shah Rukh Khan movie. Shah Rukh Khan has acted in a depiction of Rashid Latif in Rais, and yeah, so that led me to think that I am Rashid Latif, and Rais is my story.
destroy the idol. And that's where again the subterfuge that modern leftist historians do. I don't want to name anybody, but then everybody knows who it is, who keep telling us that this was not for religious considerations, it was economic considerations,
Yeah.
that there was so much wealth in the Somnath Mandir, and of course the evil Brahmin who was hoarding all the wealth
Well,
and all of that. There may be some element of truth about the wealth in the temple, but the fact that there was no religious consideration for it is bunkam, because this is narrated by Mahmud Ghazni's own Persian chroniclers, his
the
court
Butkish on
historians.
But.
Butshikan.
But chicken, sorry.
Yeah.
But chicken, that
So,
that's
I
whole
mean,
thing.
people like Minhaj Siraj, Al Baruni,
Mm.
Ferishta, all of them write in their chronicles, contemporary and even later, they narrate this whole thing that after passing through Patan, he comes to Somnath temple and he's quite shocked to see 50,000 common Hindus, not soldiers of the Chalukyan army, but common Hindus, all armed in some, manner, defending their temple and their Jyotirlinga. And this takes him 1 week to kill all of them and then enter the Garbhagriha. And all the pujaris come running to him and say, "You are a Lutera, you want money. So, whatever money is there in the temple, we will offer it to you. Just take it and leave." And this guy laughs and says, "If I do that, I will be famous as a trader of idols, which I don't want my legacy to be called so. I'd rather be called a breaker of idols or Butchikan." And so he refuses the money, demolishes the shivling, and then it is, of course, pounded and taken away to Makkah and Ghazni to be put on the footsteps of the mosque so that every time a
And
faithful
goes on the
steps on it, the
infidels.
infidel's religion comes down. This is chronicled first person account of the court historians, and today we are providing cover fire for that by saying, no, 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 it was only economic considerations. And the kind of resistance, one is this story of how 50,000 people did this. Now, on his way back, he wants to go back to Ghazni quickly after the demolition. uh, some of the Hindus try and lure him as guides. He and his entire army are thirsty. They say, "We'll show you where water is," and they misguide him, take him through a dry desert, and then he's suddenly suspicious and he asks them, like, "Where are you leading me to?" And then they say that you
Mm.
destroyed our god, and so this was our way of taking revenge on you, and we want to actually uh, kill you of thirst. And that's when he finally slays them. So this sense of awakening and consciousness that
Drink some water, Vikram Sampath. You have been talking a lot.
a place of sacredness of our country, of our religion, has been destroyed was so rife. And people like Professor Meenakshi Jain, in her Flight of Hindu Deities, I think she beautifully chronicles this whole thing, that constantly this effort was there to keep temples were getting destroyed, whatever was happening,
The
but
shivlings were saved.
they were moving across
Yeah.
geographies. They were being hidden in wells, in deserts, in all kinds of places, and resurfacing. So in Mathura, if something is being demolished, it would go all the way to Rajputana and find a mandir there, or go to South India, false walls in the Garbhagriha, so that even in Mysore, I heard that Hyder Ali wanted to break the Chamundeshwari
Mm.
idol. And so overnight, when the priests heard of that, they built a false wall and a false deity was installed. And he came and destroyed that,
The
broke
nose, the
the
yeah,
nose, yeah, to defiled the
which you
deity.
see across all the temples in Karnataka.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to admit that. You're writing
If you are going to, it is a very stark depiction in Rajasthan. If you go to Rajasthan if you spend some time in Chittorgarh, Kishangarh, Jaipur, you will find a massive number of deities demolished, noses, heads cut off, slashed by Mughal princes of yesteryears. And it's a stark depiction of how temples have been destroyed. And yeah, and what is happening in France, the same thing is happening in France. Teachers heads are getting cut, and teachers 18-year-olds are killing teachers by cutting off their heads, and what and burning libraries. So yeah, so it's history is repeating itself in Islam today.
a book on Tipu. I'm sure that is also going to rile a number of people.
Sucker for punishment.
Yeah. So that I'm sure you're researching on that, and you're going to be coming to those areas where all those temples were destroyed,
Yeah.
where people were killed
Yeah.
in thousands, let into the jungles, into that thick tropical forest to be killed by
Yeah.
the animals.
Yeah.
And the forests were covered. I mean, we've only as students of the Central Board of Secondary Education and NCRT books, we didn't read of any of this.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, from because I'm from Karnataka, I've heard from aunts and uncles
Hmm.
who've told me this. But none of my classmates ever knew. And I was called, oh, you're bigoted, or you've heard this from pujaris or somebody who's told you. That's not true. And yes, okay, maybe Tipu was a great king in the sense of a conquest. He fought or whatever. But this is also part of our
Yeah.
history.
Yeah. I mean, and it's living history. The story of the Mandya Mayangars of Melkote, whom he 400, 500 of the family who were hanged from trees on Deepavali. And to this day, the Mandya
They
Mayangars
don't
don't
celebrate.
celebrate
Yeah.
Diwali. The Mangalorean Christians, you come from Mangalore, and that
Yeah.
side you have the Konkanis, and then the Kodavas from Coorg,
Yeah.
the Nayars of Malabar. I mean, there's so much of anger even now. Coorg, I'm told a lot of people call, disparagingly, they call street dogs as Tipu.
Tipu.
So
Yeah.
that's also a living history. And despite that, we do perverse things like Tipu Jayanti and all of that, only for modern political, vote banks and
Hmm.
politics. So, which is sad. I mean, let that happen. Can't History and politics are so intertwined. But I think as historians, as scholars, one needs to put out all the facts. I mean, this whole thing that if I tell the whole truth, somebody somewhere is going to get offended. I don't know why that happens. When people talk about the excesses of the East India Company and the British, no one is saying that it's going to offend the Christians of India, right?
But there, it was not the Christians of India, but it was said at one point of time, right? Because the fear that the Brits will say no, that that got over.
Hmm.
But as far as Indian history is concerned, there's only been one section
Yeah.
which had a control over our tales,
Yeah.
over our stories.
True.
And now there is another lot which is coming out. At least, I mean, you guys were always there, who were like, there are stories of ours, of India, which have not been told. But now there is a voice that you have. I
Yeah.
just feel that it's like pehle tha na ki ha Jangal nacha more kisne dekha. It's like
Yeah.
you're writing your text which nobody is reading, nobody of consequence is reading,
True.
but now it's being read.
Yeah. I mean, R.C. Majumdar, Jadunath Sarkar, Sitaram Goyal, Ram Swarupji. I mean, their books are totally out of print. Now it's all coming back into circulation. I see the entire R.C. Majumdar's collection available for sale, and that really warms my heart because history is a discipline which should thrive on multiplicity of opinions. To have a single monochromatic narrative and
Mm.
imposed almost hegemonically on the entire nation, I think that does great disservice to the discipline itself.
Yeah.
And even at the heights of the of imperialism, when James Mill wrote his the history of British.
Basically, what Smita said about Jungle Nacha More Jungle Dekha More Kisne Dekha. It's poignant because in our backyard, every day or almost once or twice a week, we see peacocks. And peacocks are jumping around our cowshed, peacocks are jumping around our walls. Peacocks find themselves very comfortable. But the thing is, when I was in Pune, we used to go for trekking to Siagarh, and every time we used to see somebody who has shat on the goat path of the trekking, we would say, "Hey, do you see the peacocks? Avoid them. Peacocks, avoid them." If somebody has shat, if there is, what do you say, shit lying on the ground, we would say, "Peacocks, just avoid them. Peacocks, just avoid them." But we never saw any real peacocks. I never saw any real peacocks until I came to Kerala.
India. And
The trekking used to happen in Siagarh, Pune.
colored India and Indians as uncivilized, and that the Brits got us all a sense of culture and civilization. And it was obviously a colonial lens of looking at history. Even at that time, we had a lot of scholars, particularly from Maharashtra, who were putting these anonymous, articles in newspapers called the First Hindu, Hindoo,
Hmm.
the Second Hindu, the Third Hindu, who were rebutting James Mill and his, thesis, and that led to the spurt of what is called the Nationalist School of Historiography, which so the irony is in under British colonialism, we still had a nationalist school, V.K. Rajwade and Bhandarkar and so many others, Jadunath Sarkar and others who came that time. But post independence in independent India,
They went into ether.
anybody who does that is a Sanghi, is
Yeah.
a communal bigot, and all these kind of names. Whereas,
I had a classmate when I was studying in Neswadia College of Commerce. Her name was Kavita Rajwade, and I never met her after passing out from college. And I don't see any of her profiles online. This is not the usual Kavita Rajwade that you find when you Google search. So I wonder where Kavita Rajwade from Neswadia College of Commerce is, because we went to Kersi Daruwala's Parsi accountancy classes every year for 5 years together. So yeah.
these are different viewpoints of looking at history. It's a very normal course of historiography, which in this country assumes all kinds of labels that we are under the payroll of someone. When I get these kind of tweets, I'm like, please show me the money, honey. Where is the money coming? Where is that paycheck which is
Yeah.
coming from someone?
But there is, you see that historians are also, so sharply divided,
Yes.
right? So there's the conservative lot, and there is the so-called liberal lot, and the liberals are anything but liberal
True.
about the point of view of conservatives,
True.
and of course, history, there is interpretation, like in
Yeah.
literature, there
True.
is interpretation. So the lot which had a stranglehold
Hmm.
over the narrative, the historical narrative over decades,
Yeah.
they are feeling threatened by this new lot of history tellers.
Yeah.
uh, it's not new history. It's a new way of telling our history, finding those lost tales. Now, they feel that you're Hindu supremacist, like you have said. Now,
Yeah.
I'm just going to quote Bibek Deb Roy, who said that you are correcting a biased narrative that has colored persecution of Bharat's history. Yeah, perception, sorry.
Yeah, I have a skewed view of Hindu supremacism. Basically, I consider myself as a devout Hindu, but every time I say that I'm a devout Hindu, I consider myself as a Qazi who knows his Sharia laws. If a Qazi knows his Sharia laws, he is a devout Hindu. And what is a hardened Muslim? A hardened Muslim is a Indian Air Force officer, an Indian Air Force officer who can fly Rafales and Sukhois is a hardened Muslim, and that is the story of Hindu supremacism. What is a Muslim zamindar? A Muslim zamindar is a RSS person who can sell subscriptions of organizer, who can sell subscriptions of uh, Kesari, 52 week subscription of Malayalam Kesari, two booklets every year, and that is RSS, pure RSS work, who goes to the Shaka every day. So, yeah, if you go to the Shaka every day, that is pure RSS work. You can't go to Shaka ITC without going to the Shaka. Shaka's ITC, the initial training course, has uh, essentially needs people who have been to Shakas to attend the course.
Sorry, perception of Bharat's history is it's something that is changing, and it's making many of us rethink.
Hmm.
It's hard, Vikram. Like, you've what you've learned in school, in
Hmm.
college, once it's embedded in your
Yeah.
head, to be told that what you've read is wrong,
Yeah.
you have to be open minded to accept it. It's hard to do that,
Very true. Very true.
right?
And I mean, as you rightly said, those growing up years, your teacher is your idol, and what your history teacher has probably told you in school.
Mm.
Uh, Poor thing. I mean, not his or her fault. They were just teaching what was there in the syllabus, but to know that a lot of that is concocted, history.
Yeah.
S.L. Bhairappa has written extensively on this. How when he was a part of the NCRT committee, the national curriculum policy or whatever that was there, it was specifically told that anything that is inconvenient truths should not be mentioned. National Integration Council or something, they had a circular that came out saying this is going to harm and you had that infamous circular, right, which the West Bengal government, I think 1989, brought out. There were two columns called Shuddho and Ashuddho, where all the textbooks of all the across classes of West Bengal under the leftist regime there, any mention of invasions, Ghazni, Ghori, Aurangzeb, that came under Ashuddho. And the Shuddho version was it all had to be taken off. You can't mention all this because it's going to affect today's society.
No, that is very true. It's going to affect today's society, and it has already affected today's society. Because if you study Kerala politics, the Education Ministry of Kerala has been Muslim League from 1952 onwards to 2023, and they have changed the face of Kerala education in Kerala by demonizing it. Because if you look at the Kerala textbooks for graduation, if if you take history, you'll only learn about Mughal history. You won't learn anything else other than Mughal history. So that is the effect that Muslim League has had on education in Kerala. And yeah, so very rightly, I would like to say that it's imperative that Shuddho and Ashuddho, basically anything that is related to Muslim history, should be removed from textbooks. And that is the only way we can say that this is Shuddho and this is Ashuddho. And that is the only way to deal with it. This guy has said something which is very revealing, but I think he has used it to reveal Gori and Ghazni's atrocities in his books. So I wouldn't recommend Veer- Vikram Sampath's books, but I would recommend his Shuddho Ashuddho policy. Very clearly states that books which have Aurangzeb, books which has Gori, Ghazni should be removed from textbooks culture. These stories should not show only the Shuddho, the clean Brahminical uh, ethos. It should be reflecting inside textbooks.
I mean, why would you want to hyphenate today's Muslims with an Aurangzeb and a Ghazni? Your idea should be to tell today's Indian Muslims that they are not your role models, and they are not someone you need to look up to as your icons.
Mm.
You're actually hyphenating them and to do this, you're fabricating history, whitewashing the crimes, whitewashing the genocides, the destruction which has happened over 800 to 1,000 years. So I don't understand where this need comes from to make a community feel secure. You need icons of the same community, and to even there, if you do, I mean, a Dara Shikoh is a better role model than an Aurangzeb. So you don't need people who will come and tell us from outside India, the infamous biographer of Aurangzeb, that he protected more temples than he destroyed. Yeah, right. I mean, Hitler also protected more Jews than he killed. So these kind of crazy,
Yeah.
nitwits come and become the voice of scholarship.
No, Darashika was no mention in, at least when I was, and I'm going to, when I knew that I'm going to be interviewing you, तो मैंने सारी किताबें मंगवाई. I got all these textbooks because,
My
I mean,
God.
my thing goes back to when I was in school, and after that when my children were in school, and there was nothing. And I've said this before in interviews and podcasts and everything, that all we knew was that the South Indian kingdoms was a choice question, and it was a 3-mark choice question. So if you didn't want to top your class in history, the 3 marks you could avoid. So Cholas, Chalukyas, Rashtrakuta, you could just completely ignore. Vijayanagara का architecture सीख लो, उसमें एक 2 mark question आएगा. So that 2 marks you just learn Vijayanagara architecture, 100% it is coming. So that most people read the Kunji, the guide, and learn about architecture. It's like, like when you're reading about Harappa, Harappan civilization. Okay, let's read about the seal.
Yeah.
One question will come on the seal,
Mother
dancing
goddess.
girl,
Yeah.
right? So, or you are going to get a question on the sewage system, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
The roads, and it was at right angles, and
Yes.
all those things you're going to get that. On Akbar, you knew Dine Hilai, kar lo hai. Then you read about Mahatma Gandhi from Salt Satyagraha onwards. Everything you read,
Yes.
because 100% there will be a 10 marker, there will be a 5 marker, there will be multiple choice. Everything on Gandhiji will be there. So you read Gandhiji in detail.
Yeah.
Now, so I said, okay, now that he's coming. Class 10, India and contemporary world. Kuch nahi. None of your heroes are there in this. Okay. I'm going to come to, okay, this
Class
is class
7 is
10.
interesting.
Okay, so this is class 10. I'm going to come here is your, I'm going to come to class 8 and the others. So class 12, part 3, Indian history, none of your heroes are here. Right? Class 11, none of your heroes.
No, basically, it doesn't need to be in history textbooks for it to be for a person to be called a hero. A person can be called a hero if he is fictionalized. So, if Vikram Sampath gets to fictionalize his stories, then they will become bigger heroes than what they are now. If you are looking for them in textbooks.
Class 12, nothing. None of your heroes are here. Class 12, another
Okay.
book, themes, none of your heroes. But you're
Yes.
getting
Indeed,
this. I
indeed.
hope you're getting this.
Yes.
So, you know whose heroes are here.
Yes.
Okay. No. Class 9, there is a little bit of mention when we are talking about class 9. This one is only about contemporary, so it's
Right.
not there in this. When we are talking a little bit about your class 8, thoda bahut, there is one or two when it comes to women and caste system, when it comes, but and then maybe a few people are mentioned, but nothing much. Okay, now we come to this class 7.
Oh, that's the interesting book. I love that. Yeah.
Huh?
For various reasons.
Yeah. So there is Chalukyas here, thoda bahut.
In a
Little
map,
bit.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's hardly any mention
So
of.
I'm looking at this, that, oh, these are the new kingdoms. It comes under new kingdoms.
Yeah.
Right? It comes under new kings and new kingdoms. And then, of course, it has got everything about what is Hiranyagarbha.
Yeah.
You understand why it is written about Hiranyagarbha? Because it will be a one marker.
Yes. Yes.
So somewhere let's put something which we can use as a thing. But no, what you talk about the Rashtrakutas and all, which you talk about,
No,
there
they're
is
all covered
nothing
in
on-
that map.
in that map.
That in
Finished.
this map, this is how these
Yeah.
people occupied this part of the
And a
some
little bit
distant.
about the administration, and of course Vijayanagara is mentioned. And then, I mean,
Oh, in that too.
yeah, little.
No, just see Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. All the coverage he gets is a photograph. So the entire book, there's no description about who he was or what his achievements were. Just a photograph and a caption. So that's all a child would read about Shivaji Maharaj in India.
So when I mentioned this once long ago on Twitter about Indian textbooks, and it's not there.
When I studied in school, we read Shivaji Maharaj's history for 3 years, fifth standard, sixth standard, seventh standard, in detail. And that was a history textbook published by Bal Bharati. So if somebody can pick up the history textbooks published by Bal Bharati in the 90s, you would find detailed history of Shivaji Maharaj in the textbooks, and that is the way to go forward.
Then I had a whole bunch of so-called liberal supporting people who, who turned around and said, God knows which history she's read. I've read CBSE, Bhaiya. I've gone through CBSE systems. some of them were Bombay based.
Yeah.
So, people who've studied in Maharashtra,
Hmm.
yes, okay, you've gone through state,
Yeah.
history books, and in your state boards,
Hmm.
you might have read a little bit
Yeah.
about Shivaji Maharaj and you know about it. But as far as,
The national
yeah,
CBSE,
basically
NCRT.
what we read was that he was a loser.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you can sue me if you want, but what we read about was how he lost,
Yeah. Yeah.
how he was killed. Maharana Pratap, how he lost.
The Haldigati,
Yes, it
which was an
was
indecisive battle, by the way. And a few years later, the Battle of the Diwar, they actually reconquered whatever they had lost, Mewar. That is not talked about.
no.
Yeah.
We read about the battles which are great heroes or should have been our heroes.
Yeah.
They're regional heroes.
Yeah.
Then the battles that they lost is part of
Basically,
Central Board of Secondary Education and NC.
basically, I have with me the entire mythology section of Amar Chitrakatha. And it's a fulfilling read, So yeah, if you get that, and other than that, I think they also have a history section of Amar Chitrakatha. So both those cover the entire read of Indian history, Indian Hindu history more than anything else.
CRT
Yeah.
books.
Yeah.
Nothing is changed.
Right.
Why are our new historians, or I shouldn't say new historians, but historians of repute who are now writing about our heroes, why is it not being incorporated? Why still?
That is a right question to the wrong person. You have, you know, the ears and eyes and everything of the government, and I think that should be addressed to someone in the government.
It is not. Okay. Let me tell you that the first time that I could get through to some
NCRT is basically comes out of National Education Policy. The National Education Policy is a detailed document that is published by NCRT, and it has the four principles based on which they come out with textbooks. And NCRT is basically made by yeah, the scholars who come out of institutions like JNU and TIS. And I am a postgraduate of Tata Institute of Social Sciences. So what you can see below on this of under this video is a few things that I learned at TIS and otherwise. So yeah, uh, I think CBSE textbooks are good, and no need to demean them. And there are other ways to know about Shivaji. It's not necessary that it has to be inside the textbook. You can read a biography of Shivaji. You can watch a serial of Shivaji. Because we grew up watching serials of Shivaji. There's this hotel called Good Luck Hotel in Pune, and the owner of the hotel, his son, was Shiva. Acted as he was a Parsi fellow, very fair, and he acted as Shivaji in the serial Shivaji. And yeah, so these are matters of pride for us Indians that we have Parsis acting as Shivaji in the serial Marathi serial Shivaji.
somebody, I did ask. Might as well mention it now, yaar. Main kyun chupaun? I mentioned it to Advani ji.
Mhm.
And he was home minister, or he had just become home minister. In fact, it was like they had just been sworn in, and he was home minister. And I took my son's history books and I showed it, and I said, "These are the history books. This is what is being taught. Ab kya hoga iska? Like, is there going to be any correction at all?" And he said, Murli Manohar Joshi is now HRD. At that time, it
Right.
came under HRD. He HRD. हम लोग relook करेंगे और ये सब बदलेगा, and there will be a change, and the incorrect depiction of our some of our warriors, some of our some of the history narrative will be changed.
Hmm.
Was how
Yeah,
many
so
years?
I'm stopping
Nothing
this
has happened.
video
Yeah.
at this
I
point
think I don't know. Now there's a lot of talk of
because if there
this
is a
new
power cut,
education
then I might
policy
lose
and
this video.
a national.
And discussed all the burning issues.